Attempt number the third. Hello Whiskers, welcome. Today we're going to be reading negative reviews of books that I rated 5 stars. So we're going to go on to Goodreads, look at the negative reviews, the 1-star reviews, and I'm going to be defending my favorites. The reason for this video? We did it, Whiskers. We hit 100 subscribers. I would like to thank you all so much for the support, and stick around till the end where I have a little announcement to make. Before we get into the books, I'm going to put the times in the description so that it does like that chapter thing and divides it up. So if there's a book that you don't want spoilers on, you're welcome to skip over it, just because in the defense of the book, I'm probably going to drop some spoilers. So there's your warning. Without further ado, The Night Circus. So this book, if you haven't seen the review yet, it's spoiler free. This book is something I think everybody should experience. The prose here, it really feels like a story you've forgotten to remember, a dream from long ago. Sometimes I really do have to almost pinch myself and like, is this book for real? Was it really pen on paper, or was it something I dreamt up? That's really how it felt while reading it and even looking back at the story now. So I'd really suggest to anyone, if you're considering it, do yourself the favor and read this. This book could not exist in any other medium. It can't be made into a movie. They shouldn't even try. It's not going to work. Yeah, it's just perfect. So let's hear what the critics have to say. Okay. There we are. This is the Goodreads, and we're going to scroll down to the reviews. Only 2% of people gave it 1 star. So let's have a look. Okay, let's look at Sunny's review. Nothing happened in this book. You know when you start reading a book and the writing is so fucking magical and you feel like you're in a fairy tale because the author's sentences flow like flower petals in the wind, and then you keep on reading and reading and the writing is still fucking magical, but also nothing has really happened, and then you're at the end of the book where the writing is still so fucking magical, but still nothing happened? Yeah, that was this book. Okay, Sunny, respectfully, I have to disagree. And I see the next review, Donna says the same. Did not finish. I tried. Too much pretty writing and too little actual plot. No. There was definitely plot in this book, but it was subtle. You had to read between the lines to find it. The plot here, the whole, is in the second layer of the book, because the first layer of this world is the Night Circus as an ordinary circus with no magic. It's just a really good circus. And then the second layer is the real premise of the book, but it's hidden. It's hidden from the public, and it's hidden from you. You're privy to it, but you really have to read between the lines. So the premise here is essentially Hunger Games with magic. So there are 2 ancient master wizards who have been, they call it playing a chess game for millennia. So what they do is every couple of years, they pick off kids off the street, and they each train the kids to be their magical apprentices. And then they send the kids into an arena of their choosing. This time, the arena happened to be the Night Circus. And then the 2 apprentices have to battle it out, competing, showing off their magic until one of them is killed, until one of them dies. And so that's what happens here. Neither of the apprentices know who the other one is, who they're up against, because there's a lot of people working in the circus and anyone could be guilty of having magic. And the tents just pop up. And slowly they start to fall in love with each other's creations, because every new tent that's built by magic is another bid at the victory. And they start to fall in love with each other as artists, as magical artists. And over time, yeah, so it's a real subtle love story. And in the end, they don't want to kill each other, and they don't want the circus to be destroyed. Because for the masters, the abusive masters, to have their way, one of the apprentices have to die, and the circus has to be destroyed. So the two apprentices sacrifice themselves, creating the life tree, the new centerpiece of the circus, and also a protective barrier for the circus, which allows it to live on. So there is plot. It's just, it's not in your face. And it's a real shame that Sunny missed out on it, because I think they really did fall in love with each other as artists, as creators, rather than as people. I think it's almost a coincidence that he is a man and she is a woman. I don't think it would have mattered what they were, like which genders they were, because really they fell in love with each other's artistic souls and creative spirits. It's a real good story. There is a good plot behind all the very pretty words. So yeah, I think that's my reaction to the critique. So let's go on to the next. Who Fears Death? This is also a story that I did a spoiler-free review for, if you're interested. But this is not a story I would tell everybody to read, for the main reason that it is dark and it is heavy. It's raw and trigger warnings galore. Honestly, the first chapters describe a rape, and it is the first rape that was done well. The story here is very much a messiah coming of age and a new religion being formed around African womanhood. It's not going to be for everyone, and that's sort of what gives it power. So let's see how I defend this one. I'm going to go down again. The rating here, 1%. Gave it 1 star. Its rating is a little bit lower overall than Night Circus. Okay, let's start here. Lissa. Okay, first off, I want to say this book was required reading for school. And I would have never picked this book up otherwise. And the class I had to read this for was fantasy fiction class. No, I don't think that's a good idea. As I said, this book deals with a lot of heavy themes. It has a lot of triggers in it. Making this compulsory reading to graduate, I don't think it's right. I don't know if it's unfair, but it's definitely not right. This book should not be thrust upon someone. I honestly think that it should have a trigger warning on the cover. I don't know how that might impact sales, but this is not for everyone. It is heavy, it is dark, and it should be something you go into willingly. So, no, I don't like that. Let's continue. First off, what the ever-loving fuck is this book? This is one of the worst pieces of shit. Okay, let's just skip the rant. Secondly, this is not a fantasy book. All the fantasy parts were religious allusions to Jesus and his crucifixion. That is not fantasy. Oh, she has healing powers and she is a sorceress? Yes, in some capacity that would be considered fantasy, but those elements are allusions to religion. The fantasy part is gone. Why my teacher picked this book for fantasy class, I have no fucking idea. Okay, so hold up there, Missy. First off, every book, every magic system is an allusion to something. Creative ideas don't just pop out of the void. Copying is plagiarism. Stealing from everywhere and creating something new out of that is art. Also, I don't think there were any allusions specifically to Christianity. There is religious aspects to it, definitely. This girl is creating her own religion. Onyesunwu is the messiah of a new religion, and she's very spiritual. But I don't see the Christianity link at all. And it is fantasy, but it's also sci-fi. It is a dystopian future, or a definitely post our world future, where somehow technology has gone back in time again. and she's a sorceress. I don't know how that is specifically Christian. So, no, I disagree with that on a couple of points. Thirdly, this book was like reading a fucking soap opera. They first circumcised all the girls so they don't have pleasurable sex till marriage, and then the rest of the book is each girl being sexually frustrated and wanting to fuck everything that moves. Like I said, this is not a fantasy novel. This is more terribly written erotica novel where the main characters are fucking sluts and stupid assholes. Okay. I don't like this person. No. If you think that female circumcision is cheap drama, then I don't even know what to say to that. This is a reality for many people, that they are forced to be circumcised to be accepted by their communities. I don't think it's right at all, but this is something that happens. How dare you call it cheap drama? This is the story about African girls, and this happens most often in Africa. And I also completely disagree with that the girls were overly sexual. They were sexual women. They enjoyed having sex. They did not have sex with anybody, and they did not have sex with anything. And those scenes where there were sex scenes were not explicit at all. I don't know if she's ever read an erotica, but this was not it. It was not, like, not at all explicit. So, no, as I said, I think obviously it's dark, but I think like the issues of sex, circumcision, rape, those things, I think they were handled pretty well and pretty maturely. And as I said, this book should not be thrust upon anyone, and I think this girl was not ready for it. So she continues on here about how circumcision is disgusting, and I'm sorry that other people's trauma makes you uncomfortable, but it's not bullshit and it's not cheap drama. This happens to actual people. So, yeah, I don't know if I can even go on if the rest are gonna be like this. This is just... I feel disgusted by her review. So, yeah, I think we'll move on to the next book. So, The Bridge Kingdom. So this is just... It's a YA fantasy, it's a romance, and I really enjoyed it. This is just a fun, light read, and I really thought that the character was really good in that sometimes she just failed completely by accident. She did everything right, and then her foot would slip and a rock would roll and she has to start all over again. And then at other points where she would succeed, it would always be because of her wit and things like that. So usually that's a bit of a weakness, that she's a Mary Sue, but it's very clear that she trained a lot and she has scars and she went through a lot. We don't go through that with her, but it's evident in her that she was taught this and that she went through it, and the way she views the world and thinks about everything is a possible weapon. It's definitely fully in her mind the whole time. So I love that. And I love the story, but I'm also really a sucker for the whole prisoners to romance thing. So this really worked for me. Let us see the reviews. Okay, 1-star reviews, 0%. Best reviewed so far, 4.2. It's a good rating. Okay, one of the cheesiest romances I have ever read. Well, then you have not read many a romance, my friend. Not well developed and so superficial. Don't get me started on when they start describing each other. Ugh. No plot, some history thrown here and there about the kingdoms and... No plot. Excuse me? There is a lot of... I'm not going to go through the plot completely again, but this one's plot was right there in your face. It was like an attempted assassination that turned into a romance, that turned into like political espionage, that turned into familial betrayal, that turned into him finding out and she being banished, and then a whole kingdom crumbling. Excuse me? No plot? No. Okay. Laura was okay. Aaron just ugh. How is he even a character? Nevertheless, a main one. I still can't fathom it. Never will. Um, he's fine. He's definitely not perfect or cookie cutter. It's not very common for a love interest to respect himself and his country so much that he would chase his wife away, literally shoot arrows at her till she leaves because he doesn't want her to die. No, I just Okay, Laura. Lots of inappropriate content. Will not be finishing. Too bad the story sounded great, but apparently the author thought you had to fill it with inappropriate content to sell. I don't think the book is marketed on inappropriate content, so you won't really need it. You won't really use it to sell. It'll be already sold before people get to that. I don't remember anything being specifically explicit. I don't think there was much inappropriate. I think there was a lot more violence than there was like sexual stuff. I assume that's what she means by inappropriate. I don't know. Let's go to the next one. La Toya. I was really excited to try this book. The reviews were all promising, but halfway through I still couldn't not become fully engaged. Something about the heroine irked me. I had to give up. Okay, that's a fine review. It doesn't really give us much information. I wouldn't say that Laura is a strong enough character to really put people off. Definitely she has some powerful scenes and some powerful emotions. Her hatred is strong, and her fear when she hits the water, that was something that will stay with me. How much, like, she's bloodthirsty and she's fully competent and she can fight everyone, but she was raised in the desert, so the sea terrifies her and she cannot swim. And going through that with her, a lot of sympathy. It just made me really like her as a character. So yeah, not too bad. Like, I understand sometimes people just don't work for you, but it's not descriptive. Okay, next up, The Drawing of the Three. This is the second book in the Dark Tower trilogy, and my favorite of them so far. The whole idea of the universes intermingling was hinted at in the first book, but here we really get it fully, and this is Stephen King enjoying himself. I know from his autobiography slash craft book on writing that this is very much his world and the type of stories he wants to do, and I love the intertextuality. He's so well read, and mixing that and creating the world that he has here, it really excites me. The world of the Dark Tower excites me, and then The Drawing of the Three is really where we get properly introduced, and I love his use of tropes, his subversion of those tropes. I love it. So let's see what people say. Okay, so once again, a very good review. 0%, but 1,000. Sure, this is a seller, isn't it? Okay. That is not a language I can read. Jessica Nix says, I am so pissed. This book was stupid and at no point to the story. The gunslinger looking for the three? Why? What is the point in the story of the gunslingers chasing the man in black or looking for the Black Tower? Instead, we are forced to read this long drawn-out story of these people, made from horrible, boring reading. I had already skipped pages reading Eddie's story. Now we're at Tudetta, who is not only black and very wealthy in the damn 50s, really, but she had a split personality, and now I'm forced to read the long, boring life of two people. I read 5 to 10 pages and then skipped the entire chapter. Skipped all the way to the last chapter and read a few passages. Realized, nope, I haven't missed anything. So now I'm in a conundrum. I don't like starting a series and not finishing, but this part of the book is leading me to believe that King did not have a story here and he's forcing it, and the other books are downhill. I like the first book. I honestly just don't understand this. The gunslinger in himself, as a force in this world, is powerful. As a character, he's just... it's great being alongside him and seeing the world with him and being in his world with him. But the more we find out about him, the less I like him. So I didn't want to spend more time with only the gunslinger or some random boy. The first book was honestly a lot more boring without the addition of new characters for him to play off of and to react to. Eddie's story, I guess what I loved about it was the intertextuality and the way that a gunslinger from his world would react to our world and the way that those things intermingled. And if she could not pick up on that, either could not or didn't enjoy it when she picked up on it, I kind of understand if that's not something that intrigues you. I guess that's fine. I don't understand the draw to Roland's character specifically, but I hope she kept reading. I think definitely, especially in the fourth book, there is a lot more of Roland in the story, and she would have loved that. She would have loved the fourth book. I had planned to read the entire Dark Tower series after liking The Gunslinger, the original, not the Lucas Q rewrite? Lucasa Q rewrite. I'm gonna assume that's how I pronounce that. But this piece of shit stopped me cold. King is dead to me now. That is harsh. I get that The Gunslinger and The Drawing of the Three are very different books. The Gunslinger has a whole lot of nothing happening, which is why I'm thankful it was so short. I think if it was a 700-page book, it would have been a problem. But this is a lot more happening, and I think it's better. So I just don't understand. I do think it's a bit harsh now. King is dead to me now. Wow. It's one book. If you enjoyed the first one and you didn't enjoy the second one, then chances are you're going to like another one of his books. It's just a bit much for me. Anton says, the first one is the worst, they said. The series gets better, they said. I agree with that. The Drawing of the Three is keeping in line with all the previous Stephen King's books I've read. It sucks. The epic Gunslinger series takes an unexpected turn in book 2, moving the story to a completely different setting and introducing new and wholly unlikable characters. Yeah, I wouldn't say the characters are the most likable ever, but them playing off each other is interesting to me. Honestly, I'm 100% here for the world and the intertextuality. I'm not here for the characters as much, if I'm being 100% honest. Put these characters in a dull world and I would be a lot less interested. But that's why you read fantasy, for a different world though. And the one thing that was kind of cool about the first book, the titular gunslinger is mauled for life, and everything cool with him goes out the window. Well played. One of the worst books I've read in my life. Okay, so you want Roland the badass gunslinger. The issue is that's not the story King is writing. He's not writing a story about a lone wolf man with a gun going on adventures. He's writing a story about a man whose world has moved on beyond around him, and he's kind of broken. He harkens back to a better age where men were hard and tough and strong and capable, and this is just, I think the expectations and the reality here is not the same. The first book sets up who the gunslinger was, and then the second book and the third, it very much gives us who he is now. He is molded for life. He is broken because his world is broken. Everything is breaking around him, and it has to affect him some way. So yeah, these ratings I feel like are all a bit more fair. They didn't get what they were expecting, and to a certain extent I can understand why they feel that way. It's just the things that I like they obviously didn't appreciate. So this is more a to each his own type of thing. Heretics Anonymous, another fun YA. This is a comedy about a bunch of kids in high school who honestly have their lives so together. They know who they are, like 26-year-olds, and it's just a really cool interplay of what I guess modern young people are like. I really enjoyed this. It felt relatable, it felt real. So, yeah. I don't really like comedy in books usually, but I really love this. So, let's get into the reviews. Going down 1%. It's the worst rating so far, 3.9. Okay. I'm so mad about how much time I wasted reading this. It's getting closer to winter here in Australia, and it's good to know I have kindling for a fire. Damn. She doesn't even say why she doesn't like it. 1.5 out of 5-star rating. Well, that was disappointing. I wanted to love this book. I really truly thought and expected to love this book, but I just didn't. The premise of the book is amazing, and that's what drew me in. Catholic school, rebel societies, outcasts. But then along came bland characters, a problematic romance, and a truly terrible main character. The book wasn't even funny. Okay, well, it was funny to me. I legit laughed out loud, and I am the target audience, so I guess that's just your mileage may vary. Bland characters, no. All of these characters had proper backstories, and as I said, stronger identities than I'm sure most kids had at their age. They know who they are, and it very clearly shows that not only do they know who they are, but they live who they are. Usually, kids are still finding themselves. Teenagers are trying on identities like clothes to figure out who they are and what feels right. And some may blossom into themselves earlier than others, but they definitely had characters. A problematic romance, I don't see it. Lucy is feminist enough to not take shit from anyone, and no, it's just not problematic. I'm sorry, it's just not. Hate it. Thank you. One word to describe this book. Bullshit. As an atheist, I feel misrepresented. I had extremely high expectations with this one, but it's one of the worst books I've ever read. I'm sorry you feel misrepresented. I'm sure all atheists are a monolith and all feel exactly the same. And I'm sorry that this one does not feel exactly the same as you do. Okay, finally, a shorter review. This isn't a bad book. I just went into it with way too high expectations. Starting off with the positives. Okay, let's skip that. Now the negatives. I never really connected with any of the characters. Okay, that's valid. I feel like this book lacks good plot and character development. Character development. It's kind of a backwards bildungsroman. So where a coming-of-age story would be your character leaving the nest. Michael's story is more of him finding a home. So, yeah, the plot, it's not very strong on plot, but this is not plot-driven. It's very much character-driven and how these characters interact to help Michael find a home, his found family, since his family is difficult. "90% of the time when there is a male-female romance in a YA book, I don't really give a shit. And although Mike and Lucy were quite cute enough, I didn't enjoy reading about their relationship." Okay, so if you don't like 90% of YA books, maybe stop reading YA? Because most YA books have male-female romance in them, don't they? It's just... I think this was just kind of not for you, but with this comment, I also maybe think YA is not for you. Not a bad book, just wasn't my thing, I guess. Yeah, I just think it wasn't your thing. I definitely think Heretics Anonymous has a very defined target market, and I think these people just weren't it. So, yeah, no strong feelings here. Okay, Whiskers, I have an announcement to make. We have a channel Discord, and I would love it if you all joined. We talk about books, obviously. We have bookish jokes with people leaving very punny book quotes, and discussions on which book you should absolutely read before you die. discussions about what we're currently reading. So if you want to join that, we also obviously have a whole section just for posting cute photos of mice. And for the wannabe authors out there, we also have a section on writing craft where you can post interesting information that you've learned about writing. I recently posted a video from Shaylin Wrights that she went over realism in fiction, and that was really interesting and not a topic I've seen a lot about. And then we also have space for bookish quizzes, especially those love language quizzes or your Harry Potter house or things like that. So if you want to join us in creating a real community, the link is in the description and I'd love to see you there. Okay, thanks Whiskers. Bye bye.